Hi, everyone. My name is Navya. I am a recent graduate of UC Berkeley, where I double majored in honors with public health and molecular cell biology. And I did all of that on a pre-med track. So I am currently in my gap year before medical school. I am applying to medical school while also working as a medical assistant in San Francisco. Today, I'm here to talk about a recent blog post I made as a consultant here with Study Hall College Consulting. And my blog post is all about how to find research opportunities in college. Now, if you're anything like me and you're pre-med and you're thinking about college and you know what medical schools are looking for, you know that research is super important. For myself, I grew up doing science fairs, volcano projects, kind of the whole shebang that most younger children who are interested in biology or science typically do. And I really had a fun time. I really enjoyed learning about different experiments. And even in high school in my AP science courses, I really had a better understanding of the in-depth processes, but I was looking forward to something a little bit deeper in the college setting. And I knew that academic research was the perfect way to do that. Now, I had read about research, I had learned about research, I had talked to previous pre-med students about the research they did, but I didn't really know what academic research looked like in practice. So what I decided to do the summer right after my freshman year, I decided to do some type of introductory biology research experience. And the way that I was able to do that is through an internship at Sandia National Laboratories. So the platform itself is a extension of the U.S. Department of Defense, and they're based out in Livermore. So when I was a high school junior, one of my AP biology teachers, she actually recommended me and referred me to this program where I won this science award. And with that award, I was able to land myself an internship for the summer after my freshman year of college. So that was the summer of 2018. So I went into this summer having no idea what research even looked like. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what type of role I would be throwing myself into, but I was super duper excited. So I was an intern in the systems biology department, and I was working on a stem cell therapy project. I can't actually talk about the specifics of the project just because it's confidential stuff under the Department of Defense. But what I can tell you is that it was a really great experience for me. I really got a better understanding of what research looked like, but what I could do as such a young professional, and not even professional, I was just a student. I didn't have much experience, but very quickly I learned how much I could do, how much of the information that I had learned in middle school and high school, I could apply in practice and do all of these biology, biochemistry experiments. So I was able to formulate my own project, and I collaborated with a few postdoctoral scholars and other undergraduate students to work on this stem cell therapy project. And I learned some techniques. I did some research on the different techniques I was learning. I looked them up online to get a better idea. I read through published journals to get a better sense of the project itself and the actual science. Of course, as an undergrad, especially as a freshman right after my first year, there was so much of the science that I didn't understand, but I was really trying my best. And I think just by doing, I was able to learn so much. And at the end of that summer, I was also able to present my findings at a poster symposium presentation thing. So overall, that experience was super important for me. It was really important for me to not only learn all of those techniques and be able to practice the different concepts I had learned in high school and even in my intro biology classes in college, but I also solidified my own decision to pursue research kind of on a more regular basis when I came back to college. So that is exactly what I did. When I came back to Berkeley that fall, so the fall of 2018, I decided to figure out a research group that I could be a part of for the rest of my time at Berkeley. So at Berkeley, there's kind of a few avenues that you can do this. One way is an application process. So there is something called the Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship Program, URAP. It's basically a platform where a number of different lab groups and research groups will upload different listings as they have or different positions that they have open for undergraduate students to come and work in their laboratories. And typically they'll give you a description of what the project is. They'll ask what they're looking for in an apprentice. and you'll have an interview. And then hopefully if you land a position through URAP, you end up actually getting academic units for the time that you spend in research. So at my university, if you were to get academic units, typically it's one academic unit for every 3 hours of research that you do per week. So for example, if you were doing, say, 9 hours of research a week, you would be getting 3 academic units. So URAP is one way that a lot of undergrads choose to find research opportunities. That is something that I did apply to. I applied to a few different projects. None of them were the most interesting to me. They were still biology. They were, still interesting to some degree, but they weren't necessarily what I was looking for. But I applied anyway, and I gave it my best shot. And unfortunately, none of those opportunities ended up working out for me. So what I chose to do instead is to just cold email a ton of professors, postdoc students, graduate students, and even undergrads. I spoke with professors that I was currently taking classes with, professors I previously took classes with, academic advisors, really just using my Berkeley network to the best of my abilities to interact with people and find out what other opportunities there are available to me. So the main way that I did this was, as I said, I cold emailed professors and other students in research groups. So I went onto the website for UC Berkeley, like Department of Biology, Department of Chemistry, and all of these different departments and projects I was interested in. I Googled a bunch of research groups and I found contact information for the principal investigators, and I sent an email. Typically what this email looked like, I'd start off, "Hi, my name is Navya. I am an X year at UC Berkeley studying these things on a pre-med track, and I'm really interested in pursuing research and being able to apply the information that I'm learning currently in my classes in a more practical sense. I recently had an internship at Sandia National Laboratories where I was working on this project and I learned these techniques, and I believe that this could be an asset to your team. I would love to chat further with you about your own research experience and path and potentially any opportunities you may have for an undergraduate student." So roughly, that's what the email looked like. And I uploaded my resume. For some groups, I uploaded my transcript or any relevant classes, the grades that I had gotten in those classes. And another really important thing is in your email, in most of my emails, I made it clear as to why I was particularly interested in this research group. So for example, the stem cell project I was working on at my internship after freshman year was using a tool called CRISPR-Cas9. And so I was really interested in continuing that type of research. So I actually found a ton of CRISPR labs at UC Berkeley. There's a lot at Berkeley just because Jennifer Doudna, who's one of the founders and kind of principal people behind CRISPR, she is a professor at UC Berkeley. So I was able to email her lab and a ton of other labs kind of under her tutelage. And so I made it clear. I said, "Hey, I looked through your paper titled this, and I'm really intrigued by this specific thing that you mentioned in the paper about this specific finding." So you really want to prove that you're interested. So that is exactly what I did. I probably emailed around 40 or 50 different lab groups, and many of them didn't respond. But for the ones that did respond, I went through a couple of interview processes. Many of them didn't work out. But finally, at the end of that fall semester, I landed an undergraduate researcher position in the Ross Wilson lab at the Innovative Genomics Institute. And this was genuinely the perfect position for me. As I mentioned, I really was interested in working with Dr. Jennifer Doudna, and the Innovative Genomics Institute is actually the institute that she founded to kickstart a bunch of different labs interested in working on CRISPR-Cas9. So I knew that it would kind of be in her space, in her world, in the CRISPR world, and really interacting with a ton of different science professionals. So beginning the spring semester of my sophomore year, I started work as an undergraduate researcher. And for my specific position, I was either offered to have academic units similar to the ones that I mentioned previously, or I could get paid for my time in my lab. So I actually chose the pay route just because I figured I could use a job. So I ended up getting paid for my research, and I spent roughly probably about 10 hours per week in the semesters and up to 20 hours per week in a couple summers that I was there afterwards. So during my time as an undergrad, I Did have my own independent project that I kind of snowballed forward across the 2.5 years that I was there. I also interacted with many of the other team members in my group to collaborate on their projects or get help from them or just kind of learn as many techniques as possible. And that was, again, a really great experience for me. Now looking back 2.5 years later, my experience in my lab is genuinely one of the most formative experiences of my life. I think it really teaches you to be independent. It really teaches you to apply all the knowledge that you're learning in textbooks and in classrooms in a more practical sense. And for me, going to medical school or thinking about becoming a physician, I know that this is really important and it's definitely going to be influential, and it's going to be an asset for when I'm applying to medical school, but also when I'm in my term as a physician looking at doing research or just looking at how to apply textbook information to practice. So research is really important to me. My experience at Sandia and the Wilson lab was more wet lab research. So that's more your, typical experiments and such. But my senior year, I was a public health major and I was interested in completing an honors thesis to get an honors degree. So that's another streamline of the research that I did. It's another facet of it. And I came up with my own independent research project. I had an advisor that I found, and I worked with her to develop literature review. I made my own question. As I said, I worked through data. I found a data set. I cleaned the data set. I did data analysis in R programming and also in Python. I got some help from other professors at Berkeley, and I eventually put together this paper about my chosen field in public health. And I did that completely on my own. And it's something that I'm really proud of. And genuinely, it's one of the reasons why I've chosen to pursue an MD MPH dual degree, or at least consider doing an MPH in my future, whether it's after medical school or in between medical school. It's something that I think is going to be really important for my career as a physician. So hopefully, as you can see from all of these research experiences, research is a really important part of my life. And that is exactly why I want to share that with all of you. So I did mention a few things here and there, but I wanted to end off this video giving you some tips and tricks about how to land a research position when you are an undergrad. So number one, use your network. You are coming to college, but that doesn't mean that you need to forget about all of your previous mentors and teachers. So reach out to your high school teachers, reach out to your middle school teachers, reach out to counselors from high school, reach out to any professors that you currently have in college. You can really reach out to any students as well on campus. Oftentimes, if you find a senior student in college and they're about to graduate, it's very possible that you can kind of swoop in and take over their position in the lab. So use your network to your best advantage. Try to interact with as many people as possible. If there's science fairs, if there's biology fairs, or if your department is putting on a meet and greet thing with professors, definitely do all of those things. You never know who you're going to meet and who's going to be able to help you out. So that's definitely number one. Number two, familiarize yourself with the different programs and applications available to you at your university. So I mentioned Berkeley has something called URAP. That is very specific to Berkeley. I know there's similar things at other University of California public schools, but every school has its own thing. So make sure to do your research. That's another thing that you can contact your advisors about, or about other students. That's really just a great central way to quickly see what positions are available, and you can apply directly through them. And it typically is a lot more of a streamlined process than the next option, which is cold emailing or cold calling different professors. So with that option, very similar to what I said, you want to be able to apply broadly and email broadly. You can email professors like principal investigators. You can email postdoctorate scholars. You can email graduate students. You can email undergraduate students. You can literally email anybody, and you never know who's going to respond. So very similar to what I had in my email, I do recommend that your template kind of follow roughly something that I chose to follow: a bit of an introduction at the beginning about who you are, why you're interested in research. Next, talk about any experience you may have. Even if it's not research experience, you can talk about, hey, I took biology in high school and I learned about this technique, and I read your paper and it seems like you also use that technique. So I think that could be beneficial in your lab. So with that, of course, include any papers. that the professors have published or the groups have published and really prove that you're interested. Many of these researchers and different scientists, they get a number of emails from undergrad students, so you want to be able to stand out as much as possible. And of course, in your email, make sure to drop your resume, make sure to drop your transcript if you need to, or any other supporting information that you think could help stand out. So when you're emailing professors, kind of my next tip is don't get discouraged. As I said, I emailed probably around 40 or 50 different people, and I would say a good 90% of those people did not respond to me. I had less than 5 people email me back, less than that who interviewed me, and at the end of the interview, they decided not to take me on. But at the end of the day, it only took one person who believed in me and wanted me on their team. So keep at it, keep trying your best. I promise you something is going to work out. But as I've said, this process is not easy. Once you do get these positions, it ends up becoming a great experience for you. But even getting there in the first step can be challenging, and I totally understand that. So hopefully this video and this blog post that I've made is helpful. I would absolutely love to work with any of you who are interested in learning about what research even looks like, what research is, why do we need it for medical school. Maybe you need some help crafting those emails or figuring out what different applications are available at your university, or maybe you just want to chat about my experiences. So I would love to do that with any of y'all. And hopefully in the meantime, these tips and tricks can help you get started. So thank you so much, and I hope you get a chance to read my blog post.